Article 4. Misleading the American people and members of Congress to believe Iraq posed an imminent threat to the United States. In his conduct while President of the United States, George W. Bush, in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and to the best of his ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty under Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has both personally and acting through his agents and subordinates, together with the Vice President, executed a calculated and wide-ranging strategy to deceive the citizens of the United States and the Congress of the United States into believing that the nation of Iraq posed an imminent threat to the United States in order to justify the use of the United States Armed Forces against the nation of Iraq in a manner damaging to our national security interests, thereby interfering with and obstructing Congress's lawful functions of overseeing foreign affairs and declaring war. The means used to implement this deception were and continue to be, first, allowing, authorizing, and sanctioning the manipulation of intelligence analysis by those under his direction and control, including the Vice President and the Vice President's agents. And second, personally making or causing, authorizing, and allowing to be made through highly placed subordinates, including the Vice President's, including the President's Chief of Staff, the White House Press Secretary, and other White House spokespersons, the Secretaries of State and Defense, the National Security Advisor, and their deputies and spokespersons, false and fraudulent representations to the citizens of the United States and to this Congress regarding an alleged urgent threat posed by Iraq, with statements that were half-true, literally true, but misleading and or made without a reasonable basis and with reckless indifference to their truth, as well as omitting to state facts necessary to present an accurate picture of the truth, as follows. A, notwithstanding the complete absence of intelligence analysis to support a claim that Iraq possessed an imminent or urgent threat to the United States, and the intelligence community's assessment that Iraq was in fact not likely to attack the United States unless it was itself attacked, President Bush, both personally and through his agents and subordinates, made, allowed, and caused to be made repeated false representations to the citizens and Congress of the United States, implying and explicitly stating that such a dire threat existed, including the following. 1. States, quote, states such as these, speaking of Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world by seeking weapons of mass destruction. These regimes pose a grave and growing danger. They could provide these arms to terrorists, giving them the means to match their hatred. They could attack our allies or attempt to blackmail the United States. In any of these cases, the price of indifference would be catastrophic. Unquote. This from a State of the Union address by President Bush, January 29th, 2002. Number 2, quote, simply stated, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. He is amassing them to use against our friends, our enemies, and against us. Unquote. Vice President Cheney said that in a speech at the VFW's 103rd National Convention on August 26, 2002. Number 3, quote, the history, the logic, and the facts lead to one conclusion. Saddam Hussein's regime is a grave and gathering danger. To suggest otherwise is to hope against the evidence. To assume this regime's good faith is to bet the lives of millions and the peace of the world in a reckless gamble, and this is a risk we must not take." Unquote. This was from President Bush's address to the United Nations General Assembly on September 12, 2002. Number 4, quote, "No terrorist state possesses a greater or more immediate threat to the security of our people than the regime of Saddam Hussein and Iraq." Unquote. This is a statement of the former Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, to Congress on September 19, 2002. Number 5, quote, "On its present course, the Iraqi regime is a threat of unique urgency. It has developed weapons of mass death." Unquote. This was a statement of President Bush at the White House, October 2nd, 2002. Number 6, quote, "But the President also believes that this problem has to be dealt with, and if the United Nations won't deal with it, then the United States with other like-minded nations may have to deal with it. We would prefer not to go that route, but the danger is so great. With respect to Saddam Hussein having weapons of mass destruction, and perhaps even terrorists getting a hold of such weapons, that it is time for the international community to act. And if it doesn't act, the President is prepared to act with like-minded nations." Unquote. This was a statement of former Secretary of State Colin Powell in an interview with Ellen Ratner of Talk Radio News, October 30th, 2002. Number 7, quote, "Today the world is also uniting to answer the unique and urgent threat posed by Iraq. A dictator who has used weapons of mass destruction on his own people must not be allowed to produce or possess those weapons. We will not permit Saddam Hussein to blackmail and or terrorize nations who love freedom." Unquote. A speech by President Bush to the Prague Atlantic Student Summit, November 20th, 2002. Number 8, quote, "But the risk of doing nothing, the risk of the security of this country being jeopardized at the hands of a madman with weapons of mass destruction far exceeds the risk of any action we may be forced to take." Unquote. President Bush said that in his meeting with the National Economic Council at the White House on February 25th, 2003. B, in furtherance of his fraudulent effort to deceive Congress and the citizens of the United States into believing that Iraq and Saddam Hussein pose an imminent threat to the United States, the President allowed and authorized those acting under his direction and control, including Vice President Richard B. Cheney, former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, and Lewis Libby, who reported directly to the President and the Vice President, among others, to pressure intelligence analysts to tailor their assessments and to create special units outside of and unknown to the intelligence community in order to secretly obtain unreliable information, to manufacture intelligence, or to reinterpret raw data in ways that would support the Bush administration's plan to invade Iraq based on a false claim of urgency, despite the lack of justification.